Lisa Knoefel was stabbed to death. Her 18-year-old foster daughter is in custody tonight.
I can't see the Sabrina that I know being violent towards anyone, let alone what she did.
In some cases, the secrets are hidden behind the walls of what seems like a normal, loving home. And that is exactly what happened when 41-year-old Lisa Knoefel was found brutally murdered in her own house. This is the chilling story of how a foster child's manipulation, a husband's dark secret, and a family's broken trust would result in a devastating and truly horrific crime. November 16th, 2012 was just any other day for the Knoefel family. The 41-year-old Lisa Knoefel was at home with her two young daughters, Megan and Haley, and her 17-year-old foster daughter, Sabrina Zunic. The evening passed quietly, with nothing to suggest that an unimaginable tragedy would soon shatter the calm. But then at around 1:15 a.m., a 911 operator received a call from a 13-year-old Megan. Terrified, the young girl begged for help as she explained between tears that her sister was stabbing her mother. Officers were quickly dispatched to the residence to uncover the unimaginable truth. As they pulled into the driveway, they saw 13-year-old Megan standing by the door, still holding the phone she had used to call 911. The officers moved quickly down the hall into Lisa and Kevin's bedroom, only to find one of the most horrific scenes. Standing there covered in blood was the 17-year-old foster daughter, Sabrina Zunic, with a 15-inch serrated knife in hand. As she stepped out of the room, tears streaming down her face and her hands raised in surrender, officers swiftly took her into custody. But the brutal nature of the crime left everyone struggling to understand. Why would Sabrina, once part of a seemingly loving family, commit such an unthinkable act? And what in the world could have driven her to this? And unfortunately, the answer wasn't a simple one. Early life of Sabrina Zunic. Sabrina was born in October of '94 to parents Susan and Mark Zunic, but unfortunately, Sabrina's life was turbulent from the get-go. Mark had already been arrested with a string of criminal charges, like disorderly conduct and driving under the influence, even before Sabrina was born. Her mother Susan also had a rich criminal background and had a history of being involved with supplying drugs. And this history was the foundation of Sabrina's unstable childhood. Sabrina's early years were filled with neglect and emotional scars. When she was only 16 months old, her father was arrested for domestic violence. Sabrina lived with him and her grandmother, but the house was far from nurturing. The neighbors said that police were frequently called to their homes, and police reports described Mark as paranoid and schizophrenic. But this was only part of the problem. By the time Sabrina was 11, Mark and Susan's relationship had spiraled further, and Sabrina herself began showing signs of anger and aggression. At age 14, the domestic situation became worse, and Sabrina was placed in a county-run group home in Emma, Kentucky. At the group home, Sabrina had trouble fitting in or even trusting others, and was known for her short temper. It was clear that her mental health would only decline. But at the age of 16, something shifted. Sabrina's foster family, a social worker, 40-year-old Lisa Knoefel, crossed paths with Sabrina and decided to give her a chance at a better life. Sabrina was placed with the Knoefel family, joining Lisa, her husband Kevin, and their two biological daughters. The house was more than accommodating. It was comfortable and welcoming with 3 bedrooms, a large front yard with a trampoline, and a wooden playset by the river. Lisa was a social worker for the Cuyahoga County Department of Children and Family Services and worked in the sex abuse department. Kevin was a truck driver. The Knoefels already had 2 daughters, Megan, from Lisa's first marriage, and Haley, who was born in 2009. At first, Sabrina seemed to fit in quite nicely and became close to the Knoefels' children. She went to school and got good grades, but soon enough Sabrina began acting out. She fought with Lisa and thought that she played favorites, giving more attention to her biological daughters, Megan and Haley, which created a divide in the household. As tensions escalated, Sabrina began to feel more isolated and alone than ever. The only family member who seemed to understand Sabrina was the then 43-year-old Kevin Knoefel, who quickly became her confidant. Although some would later say that the bond seemed strange, but the fights continued, and the sense of abandonment Sabrina felt would set in motion a series of events that would result in a brutal bloodbath, the murder. The night of November 16th started like any other night. Kevin Knoefel, a truck driver for Gordon Food Service, was heading home from Michigan, leaving Lisa alone with the 3 kids. Lisa followed her nighttime routine by putting their youngest daughter to bed and then retreated to her room. Megan also went to bed, while Sabrina stayed up and worked the office like any normal teenager, listening to music and doing her homework. Around midnight, though, she tried sleeping but had a headache. That is when she went to Lisa and Kevin's bedroom to get some pills and later went to sleep. But that is where the details start to blur. Around 1:15 a.m., Megan was jolted awake by a strange noise. Still groggy, she strained to listen, and that is when it hit her. The sounds weren't random, it was a struggle. She jumped off the bed and ran straight to her parents' room, and that is when she saw something that would be etched in her memory for the rest of her life. It was Sabrina, covered in blood. She had repeatedly stabbed her mother Lisa, who was lying on the floor. Megan immediately rushed to the phone to dial 911. Her voice cracking as she tried to explain what had happened. Police's arrival. The police found that Lisa had suffered more than 178 stab wounds to her head, neck, torso, and extremities. There were clear signs of defensive wounds, and some of the injuries were so severe that the knife, a 15-inch convex serrated blade, was bent from the force of the assault. Lisa was later pronounced dead. But there was one more thing on that crime scene that would send chills down the officer's spine. One of the officers heard a small sound in the closet, and when he approached it, he saw that Knoeffel's 3-year-old daughter, Haley, hiding, too scared to utter a single word. The poor child had witnessed her mother, the woman who had put her to bed only hours earlier, being stabbed to death. Given the brutality of the murder, the officers were determined to get to the bottom of the case. But the more they dug in, the more complicated things got. Aftermath. The police notified Kevin, who was away for work, about his wife's death. But Kevin's reaction to the news was cold and unemotional. He inquired about his daughters, Haley and Megan, but displayed little to no concern for the well-being of his wife, Lisa. The officers who interacted with Kevin that morning noticed that he was strangely calm, stating that he was an EMT and had seen things like this many times before. But there was one thing that he did show emotion for. Kevin seemed extremely frustrated when he was not allowed to see Sabrina, demanding to be listed as her visitor. The officers found this odd since Sabrina was the one who had stabbed his dear wife, destroying his whole family, but they brushed it off and turned their focus to questioning Sabrina, who was a mystery in her own. Sabrina maintained that she remembered nothing about that night. She claimed she had no idea why her foster mother had ended up dead, since she had only been there for the medicine. But the evidence against her was undeniable, and she was eventually charged with aggravated murder. But while Sabrina faced jail time, Kevin's response to the murder left everyone uncomfortable. After Lisa's death, Kevin acted with shocking detachment. He quickly donated all of Lisa's belongings to Goodwill, and even attempted to sell the bedroom furniture on Craigslist. Only 5 days after the murder, he had Lisa's room cleaned. Friends and family noticed that he seemed to spend a lot of money to pay off their foreclosed home, purchase new cars, and indulge in flying lessons. Suspicious, the police investigated how he was able to afford all the luxuries, and that is where they learned something truly shocking. Immediately after his wife's death, Kevin collected almost $75,000 from various insurance policies following Lisa's death. This only made the police more suspicious, but with his airtight alibi, the police couldn't do much until 6 months later. The affair. After 6 months behind bars, Zunick began to feel abandoned and finally broke her silence, and what she revealed would send shockwaves through the investigation, turning the entire case on its head. Back in 2011, when tensions rose in the house, Sabrina began confiding in her foster father, and the two grew unusually close, creating a strange dynamic. Kevin provided a listening ear and seemed to understand her in ways Lisa couldn't, but their bond went far beyond simple care. They shared private moments that blurred the lines between fatherly support and something much more disturbing. Sabrina later revealed that it started with massages. She always wanted to be a massage therapist and help people, and when she presented this idea to Kevin, he encouraged her to practice on him. And it started on the legs because he was a truck driver and had cramps in his legs, and it gradually went to more, Zunick explained. By the fall of 2012, Sabrina and Kevin were regularly having sex, marking the beginning of an unsettling sexual relationship. Sabrina, a rebellious and troubled teenager, was convinced that she and Kevin were in love, but the relationship was far from healthy. Sabrina believed that their connection was something to be kept a secret from the rest of the family, and spoke in coded language, using affectionate names for each other. but those who knew them started to notice the uncomfortable tension in their interactions. One of Sabrina's friends later recalled that the two seemed disturbingly close. They were too friendly, they were too close, they would make sexual jokes towards each other. Sabrina's attachment towards Kevin had become obsessive, and she was no longer able to distinguish between familial love and something darker and more toxic. When the younger sisters weren't around, Sabrina and Kevin would spend time together, but the disturbing nature of this relationship didn't end there. The level of Kevin's manipulation truly went far and beyond. As Sabrina and Kevin grew closer in 2012, their already fragile bond with Lisa weakened further. Sabrina believed her foster mother wanted her out of the house. She resented Lisa for the way she kept her from bonding with 3-year-old Haley, whom Sabrina had established a motherly connection with. In September of 2012, Kevin and Lisa's marriage was essentially hanging by a thread. That month, the police were called to their home for a domestic dispute, where Lisa accused Kevin of choking the 13-year-old Megan. Even though that night, Lisa ended up leaving after the argument, Kevin had already snapped. Kevin told Lisa that he didn't love Lisa anymore and wanted her dead. Sabrina, disturbed by the sudden revelation, tried asking him why he wouldn't just divorce her. His chilling response sent a wave of shock through her, setting the stage for what was to come. She's worth more dead than alive. One day, Kevin allegedly broke down crying in the car, saying he just couldn't take it anymore, and that he was going to kill myself if Lisa wasn't dead. That is when Sabrina decided she would kill her. These chilling words set in motion a sinister plan, one where Kevin and Sabrina meticulously plotted Lisa's murder, step by step. She later testified in court, saying that at first, a friend offered to hire a hitman. Then Kevin suggested a gun, but that made Sabrina nervous, so they decided on a kitchen knife. Kevin would even give Sabrina pointers on how to make Lisa's murder look like the result of a botched burglary. He taught her how to stab Lisa and twist the blade to inflict maximum damage, and even helped her pick out the knife. On November 16, 2012, after Lisa had gone to bed, Sabrina silently slipped on a ski mask, armed herself with a knife, and made her way into Lisa's bedroom, using the dim light from her cell phone to guide her. But during the attack, Lisa had begun to fight back, and at one point was even on top. But in a frantic, desperate moment, Sabrina lost it and repeatedly plunged the knife into her. Lisa later revealed that Kevin had instructed her that if she got caught, she should claim insanity. He even promised to help her with lawyers and help her out of jail. Until May 6, 2013, when Kevin failed to arrange Sabrina's legal defense, and Sabrina realized she had been manipulated. And now, the truth was out, and Kevin's elaborate plan to kill his wife and walk away unscathed had been completely exposed. The trial. Sabrina cooperated with prosecutors and offered a plea deal to expose everything Kevin had done. Kevin didn't admit to anything, but Sabrina's testimony was more than enough to arrest him for complicity in aggravated murder and sexual battery. In August 2013, Sabrina pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, which would come in 2042. Noon, Zunic sentencing. But Kevin's trial wasn't as smooth. Kevin pleaded not guilty, claiming there was no evidence of his affair with Sabrina or his plan to kill Lisa, and his defense argued Sabrina's testimony was unreliable due to her troubled past. However, the jury sided with Sabrina's side of the story, and Kevin Knoefel was sentenced to 2 years for each of the 6 counts of sexual battery and life in prison for complicity to aggravated murder, with eligibility for parole after 30 years. Kevin Knoefel sentenced. And with that, the shocking truth was out. Kevin hadn't just masterminded his wife's murder by manipulating Sabrina, he had also groomed the young, vulnerable girl, exploiting her in more ways than one. In this case filled with betrayal, abuse, and unimaginable trauma, the final question remains: who is truly to blame in this story? Was it Sabrina, the troubled child, or Kevin, the true mastermind who orchestrated the whole murder? If you liked this video, let us know your favorite part in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notifications, and stay tuned for the next one.